this will just go there, it won't go here.
You try.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Yes.
Hare Rama.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Jason, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
No more devotees coming?
Coming.
Coming. Shall we wait? We should wait.
No, we can start.
Start? You chant a little. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai
Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai
Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai
Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai
Go Premanandi Gaya Mukhlad Paramahamsa Paribrajacharya Ashvatara Siddha Sri Srimada's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON Samstapakacharya BBT Samstapakacharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitya Leela Pravishta Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath Sat Kushai Ki Preng Sivaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Radha Krishna Gopakunda Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Gangamayi Jamunamayi Ki Srimati Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Go Premanandi Shri Harir Nam Sankirtan Shri Brihat Brinanda Ki Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for giving us association.
Thank you for being there. So today I want to just talk about Krishna consciousness.
今日咧淨係講咧呢個Krishna 有關 Krishna 思覺嘅。
I'm not going to give a lecture.
唔係講課嘅。
Tired of giving lectures.
要講悶咗啦，即係成日講課講好嘅。
Let's just talk about Krishna consciousness.
咁大家討論下乜嘢係 Krishna 思覺。
So open, question, answer, discussion.
呢個係問題時候啦，大家可以隨便問，跟住答。
So it's your turn.
輪到你啦。唔使怕醜，唔使一齊問嘅。
Huh?
I say don't ask together.
Yes, Tosa.
I have questions after listening to your morning class last time on Saturday, I think. You talked about also you mentioned about relationship and love. So if there is no desire to enjoy separately with Krishna in the spiritual world, and only to put Krishna in the center, only to love him, but why there are also the desire in conjugal love in spiritual world, for example, when Sudama want to marry Tulsi at Kbdg, so they descend to the material world to enjoy together. Do you understand?
Yeah, I got it, basically.
即係靈性世界居民，如果淨係得對以 Krishna 為中心嘅愛係嘛？點解會有一啲嗰啲靈性世界嘅居民會想落翻嚟呢個物質世界？好似 Tulsi Devi 會想同 Sudama 結婚，咁所以落出嚟呢個物質世界，點解咧？
Well, that's a very interesting development. They cursed each other.
咁其實都係一個好特別嘅發展嚟嘅，咁佢哋互相詛咒。
Now you may say, oh, spiritual world, how can there be cursing the spiritual world? It's supposed to be all nice and flowers and smiles and everything.
你又諗啊？點解喺靈性世界都有詛咒嘅呢件事嘅咧？咁應該靈性世界好美好啦，係嘛？即係有雀仔啊、唱歌啊，跟住有微笑啊咁之類。
So I have to reread a letter. This is a letter I wrote one of the times I was here before, and you wrote me a letter back saying, "Oh, that was so nice. Please send it." Remember?
Oh yeah.
The famous Utopia letter.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to read that letter again because it answers the question.
咁咧喺馬來有一封信係 Srila Prabhupada 寫出名嘅，咁係有關烏托邦呢個概念嘅。咁 Prabhupada 係向一位奉獻者解釋嘅時候寫咗一封咁嘅信，我係譯咗嘅，擺咗喺 Temple 嘅網站，你可以睇下。
This letter is by Srila Prabhupada, and it addresses the principle. And then from there we can discuss maybe some detail that will get closer to your question.
聖康巴寫呢封信啦，咁就講一啲大嘅原則啦。咁我而家可以詳細啲咧去討論。We actually translated letter and circulated to all the devotees in China.
Do you remember? Did they get it here or just over in China?
They also get in Hong Kong, but we put in the website.
So there's a letter that was sent by me that was put onto your website. And I want to read that letter. Because, you know, even when you get it, when you hear it together, it's more potent.
即係可能你哋睇過都好啦，咁但係如果一齊讀呢封信咧，個能量又更加大嘅，即係對大家嘅，即係對大家可能鼓舞得更加多。
Correspondence, 1972, February 4th. Atreya Rishi. Okay, ready? Ready?
Yes.
Ready? My dear Atreya Rishi.
我親愛嘅 Atreya Rishi 係1972年。
Please accept my blessings.
請接受我嘅祝福。
I am in due receipt of your very nice letter of January 10th, 1972.
咁咧我就收到你嗰封好美好嘅信啦，就係1972年1月10號寫嘅。
What happened? I lost it. I lost it. And I am very much pleased by the sentiments expressed therein.
咁咧我咧就好高興咧，你封信入邊所表達嘅感情。
Okay, now you asked the question, so you got to sit and listen to the answer. That's okay.
Yeah,
That's okay. It is not so much that because there may be some faults in our God brothers and God sisters, or because there may be some mismanagement or lack of cooperation, that this is due to being impersonalists. No.
咁帕帕就講佢話咧，其實就唔係因為即係你哋嘅神，我哋嘅神兄弟姊妹有啲錯處啊，又或者有啲管理不善啊，或者大家合作唔夠好啊，又或者因為咧係非人格主義者啊，咁都唔係呢啲原因嘅。
It is the nature of the living condition to always have some fault.
咁就係咧呢個生活嘅條件嘅本質咧，就係經常咧都係有啲錯處嘅。
Even in the spiritual world, there is some fault and envy.
就算喺靈性世界咧，亦都有啲錯處同埋有啲嫉妒。
Sometimes the gopis will quarrel over Krishna's favor.
咁有時啲母牛姑娘咧，因為想爭取咧 Krishna 嘅寵幸咧，佢哋都會嗌交嘅。
And once, Krishna was so much attracted to Radharani that by mistake he tried to milk the bull instead of the cow.
咁有一次咧 ，Krishna 咧係咁受 Radharani 吸引咧，佢搞錯咗，佢走去佢本來揾隻母牛揸牛奶，點解知佢揾隻公牛揸牛奶
？What kind of God are you?
咩神嚟㗎嚇？Krishna 咩神嚟㗎？點解會搞錯咧？
And sometimes when the gopis used to put on their dress and makeup for seeing Krishna, they would be too much hasty and smear kumkum and mascara in the wrong places. And their ornaments and dresses would appear as if small children had been trying to dress themselves and they were not very expert.
有時啲母牛姑娘咧就會即係去見 Krishna 之前咧就會打扮自己啊、化下妝啊咁樣，但係因為佢哋即係實在太想即係太過興奮啦就係啦，咁你有時會搞錯嘅，有時會搽錯咗啲胭脂啊嗰啲，有時搽錯嗰啲眼睫毛液啊，咁有時又會戴錯啲首飾啊，咁着起嚟就好似細路仔嘗試自己着衫，但唔係好叻嗰啲啦，就係咁。
There are so many examples.
有好多呢啲嘅例子。
But it is not the same as material fault or material envy.
但係呢一啲嘅錯處同埋嫉妒咧，同物質嘅錯處同埋嫉妒係唔同嘅。
It is transcendental because it is all based on Krishna.
咁呢啲都係超然嘅，因為一切咧都係建基於 Krishna。
Sometimes when one gopi would serve Krishna very nicely, the others would say, "Oh, she has done so nicely. Now let me do better for pleasing Krishna."
咁有時候有一個母牛姑娘咧係好好咁樣服務 Krishna 啦，咁另外一啲母牛姑娘就會話：哇，佢做嘅服務做得咁好，等我做得比佢更好去取悅 Krishna 先。
That is envy or competition, but it is transcendental, without malice. Very important point. Without malice.
咁呢啲係嫉妒啦，但係係超然嘅，同埋咧係冇惡意嘅。
So we shall not expect that anywhere there is any utopia.
咁所以咧，我哋唔應該期待咧喺任何地方咧會係有出現呢個烏托邦嘅地方。
Rather, that is impersonalism.
其實咁樣諗咧，先至係非人格主義。
People should not expect that even in the Krishna consciousness society there will be utopia.
咁所以咧，人們咧唔應該期待咧，就算喺 Krishna 之愛協會入邊咧，都會有呢個烏托邦呢回事。
Because devotees are persons.
因為奉獻者都係人嚟㗎。
Therefore, there will always be some lacking.
咁所以咧，佢哋肯定無論即係點都會有啲短處。
But the difference is that they're lacking because they have given up everything to serve Krishna, money, jobs, reputation, wealth, big educations, everything. Their lackings have become transcendental because despite everything they may do, their topmost intention is to serve Krishna.
咁雖然但係即係奉獻者雖然有短處咧，但係佢哋嘅短處係唔同嘅，因為佢哋放棄咗一切去服務 Krishna 啦，即係佢哋放棄咗金錢啦、工作啦、名譽啦、財富啦，即係高尚嘅教育啦，各方面啦。咁佢哋嘅短處咧 其實咧就係一啲係超然嘅，因為雖然無論佢哋做咩都好啦，佢哋最高嘅目的咧就係為咗服務 Krishna。
One who is engaged in devotional service, despite the most abominable action, is to be considered saintly because he is rightly situated.
雖然即係一個人如果係從事奉獻服務咧，咁有時佢係做咗啲最被人指責嘅行為都好啦，咁仍然咧係被視為神聖嘅，因為咧佢係處喺一個恰當嘅地位。
The devotees of Krishna are the most exalted persons on this planet.
Krishna 嘅奉獻者咧喺呢個星球入邊咧最崇高嘅人。
Better than kings.
比國王更加崇高。
All of them.
佢哋所有奉獻者其實係。
That's it. You got it. So we should always remember that.
咁所以我哋應該記住啦。
And like the bumblebee, always look for the nectar.
咁我哋應該好似小蜜蜂咁樣咧，經常咧去找尋啲甘露啊。
Or the best qualities of a person.
或者係找尋咧一位人物、一個人嘅最好嘅品質。
Not like the utopians.
就唔好好似啲烏托邦主義者。
Who are like the flies, who always go to the open sores or find the faults in a person.
佢哋就好似蒼蠅咧，嘗試去人哋啲傷口度咧係揾錯處嘅。
And because they cannot find any utopia, or because they cannot find anyone without faults, they want to become void, merge, nothing. They think that is utopia.
咁因為佢哋咧唔能夠揾到烏托邦啦，咁佢哋咧又揾唔到任何人係冇錯處啦，咁佢就想變為咧虛無啊，融匯埋一齊啊，空啊，咁佢哋諗咧呢個就係烏托邦㗎啦，咁咧係冇人格性嘅。
To become void of personality.
係就冇咗人格性。
So if there's sometimes slight disagreements between devotees, it is not due to impersonalism, but it is because they are persons, and such disagreements should not be taken very seriously.
咁所以咧，如果奉獻者之間有時有啲少少嘅爭拗啊，咁或者唔同意都好啦，咁其實唔係因為非人格主義嘅，而係因為咧佢哋係人嚟嘅。咁呢啲嘅即係唔同意嘅呢啲嘢咧，其實我哋唔使咁認真對待呢啲，即係有時啲即係唔同嘅諗法。
The devotee is always pessimistic about the material world, but he is very optimistic about the spiritual life.
奉獻者咧，經常咧對呢個物質世界咧都好悲觀嘅，但係佢對靈修嘅生活咧就好樂觀嘅。
So in this way, you should consider that anyone engaged in Krishna's service is always the best person.
咁所以咧，你應該去看待咧，任何人從事 Krishna 服務嘅咧，都係最好嘅人。
I am very pleased that you are assisting your god brothers so nicely.
咁我好高興咧，你係喺度咧咁好咁樣係協助緊你嘅神兄弟們啦。
Yes, this is our real position, to be the servants of the servants of the servants.
咁係嘅，呢個先係我哋真正嘅地位。我哋應該係要做僕人嘅僕人嘅僕人。
And by your quiet and humble attitude, you shall set the example of Vaishnava, so that all may learn from you. And very soon, their puffed up attitude will disappear, and they will come to you and seek your advice in matters.
咁 Is it petting? 咁拋讚個奉獻者話你咁你一個人你咁沉默啦，同埋你咁謙虛嘅態度咧，咁你應該咧係作為嗰個 Vaishnava 嘅模範啦，咁讓其他人咧向你學習啦。好快咧，佢哋啲驕傲嘅態度咧就會消失㗎啦。咁跟住佢哋咧就會嚟揾你啦，係希望向你求教啦。
Now, one very interesting point is that when he says their puffed up attitude will disappear, do you know who he was talking about?
咁當呢度提到佢哋嗰啲好驕傲嘅態度會消失嘅時候，佢講緊邊個其實？
He was talking about the GBC.
佢講緊嗰啲 GBC 成員。
Because Treya Rishi was complaining about the GBC.
因為阿 Treya Rishi 咧，咁之前佢寫封信咧投訴啲 GBC 啲態度。
And how they were disagreeing, and there was mismanagement, so many things.
即係話佢哋管理不善啊，好多問題啊。
So Prabhupada was trying. He was so expert. He was so expert in teaching us how to cooperate.
咁我覺得係咁精通於咧係讓我哋咧係去即係通力合作嘅。
And no one should think, even they have some big position, they controlling a lot of assets, managing or whatever, they should never be proud.
任何人咧，無論佢係做管理嘅啦，可能好多權力啦，可能控制好多嘅財富啦，咁佢都唔應該咧係驕傲嘅。
And even in the spiritual world, see, the material world is a reflection of the spiritual world.
物質世界係靈性世界一個反應嚟嘅。
So just like when you look at yourself in the mirror, everything's there. Your eyes are there, your nose is there, your ears, your hair. And if there's some speck on your, you put something there, speck is there, it comes on the mirror. Or if you decorate yourself very nicely, the decoration's there in the mirror.
譬如你照鏡啦，你嘅眼耳口鼻啊，冚唪唥都喺度嘅。咁如果有啲咩印啊，可能你化妝靚啲啊，咁都睇鏡照到出嚟嘅。
So that means that everything that we experience here is there in the spiritual world.
即係話咧，我哋喺呢個世界所經驗嘅一切咧，我哋喺靈性世界亦都會經驗到。
But there it's pure.
但喺靈性世界經驗咧就係純潔。
And here it's contaminated by the modes of material nature.
而喺呢度咧，我哋經驗嘅嘢咧就係受到咧物質形態所污染。
So when we get upset with one another, or we have some conjugal, mistake, or all these things, Krishna is not the one in the center.
咁譬如即係我哋互相彼此可能有啲爭執啊，或者啲即係愛情問題啊。咁呢啲問題咧，個中心點唔係 Krishna 嚟嘅。
I have some fight with my wife or my husband or my lover. It's not the same. There in the spiritual world, it's not the same.
呢啲物質世界夫婦啊、情侶嗌交，同喺靈性世界嘅係唔同嘅。
That's why we come to the material world.
咁所以咧，我哋嚟到呢個物質世界。
To enjoy the physical senses.
咁就係去咧享受咧呢啲肉體嘅感官。
Separate from Krishna. 係
離開 Krishna 去享受。
That's why we come here.
所以我哋嚟到呢個物質世界。
So when Sridhama and Vrinda cursed each other, it was they couldn't have the kind of fight that they wanted to have there in the spiritual world, so they had to come here to do it.
Sridhama 同埋 Tulsi Vrinda Devi 佢哋互相詛咒咧，點解佢哋會咁做咧？因為佢哋喺靈性世界咧，即係如果想嗌場交咧，就即係嗌唔成嘅啫喺靈性世界，咁要落水嚟先嗌。
So sometimes when Krishna wants to fight, because sometimes he has fighting spirit, otherwise how can we have fighting spirit?
咁 Krishna 有時想打交啊同人，咁因為我哋都有呢個同人爭執啊或者打交嘅傾向，咁呢啲傾向邊度嚟？其實嚟自 Krishna。
He's the source of everything.
因為佢係一切嘅源頭嚟嘅。
But there's no one in the spiritual world who will fight with him like that.
咁但喺靈性世界咧，冇人咧好似即係啲惡魔咁同 Krishna 打得咁嘅，即係打得咁勁嘅。
So sometimes he makes an arrangement that one of his, associates in the spiritual will come here and agree to be a demon, so that he can really fight with someone very powerful.
咁咧有時咧 Krishna 會安排去一個即係靈性世界嘅朋友咧，係落降凡嚟到呢度咧，做一個勁嘅惡魔咧，咁先有一場咧好精彩嘅打鬥啊！
When they used to have kings still on the earth, here they had emperors, but on the other side they had kings, and the king would sometimes keep someone who would wrestle with him, fight with him, as a sport.
有啲地方有國王嘅時代咧，咁國王有時會即係喺皇宮有一啲拳手啊、摔角手啊，就同呢一個咧國王咧打過嘅，即係有人陪國王玩下。
So that's the principle.
呢個係個原則咯。
That usually reconciles those kinds of seeming inconsistencies or something that you wouldn't think would be there in the spiritual world.
咁呢個可以咧去解決一啲你自己嘅疑惑啦，即係譬如話靈性世界究竟係點嘅咧？即係細節嘅呢封信其實就講得係幾好嘅。
Last night we read some of Shiva Ram Maharaj's new book.
琴晚我哋讀咗咧 Shiva Ram Maharaj 新書嘅其中一啲章節。
The killing of Kamsa.
咁就係咧Kamsa 被殺嘅情節。
And Krishna, he was a real provocative person. He was really provocative. Provocative means.
Krishna 咧就煽風咩？搞風搞雨。
So anyway, after he killed the wrestlers, you know, and it was a big fight, and he killed the wrestlers right in front of Kamsa.
咁跟住 Krishna 殺死咗啲即係好強壯啲摔角手啦，跟住佢就殺。
And then he came up in front of Kamsa. By this time, Kamsa is he's just furious. He's just furious.
咁呢個時候咧 ，Kamsa 咧就咧哇非常之憤怒啦。
And Krishna was just winding him up more and more and more.
咁 Krishna 咧喺度咧好似點樣喺度火上加油。
Winding him up, you know what it means. Winding him up. And then Krishna came up to the dais right in front of Kamsa and he said, Your Highness, now that we have entertained you with your wrestlers, we would like to entertain you with our wrestlers. And then he called all the cowherd boys into the arena, and they started to dance and chant and like that. And then they started to wrestle.
Krishna 就同 Kamsa 講咧，佢話之前你嗰啲摔角手就即係我哋娛樂咗你啲摔角手啦，而家咧等我哋嗰啲摔角手咧去娛樂翻嚟，咁就啲蒙牛童們咧就進入嗰個會場啦，咁咧就喺度唱歌跳舞啲蒙牛。
And this time after time, Krishna would lose to the cowherd boys.
咁 Krishna 同嗰啲蒙牛童喺度摔角咧，咁好多次咧 Krishna 都輸嘅。
Because he wanted to show him. My devotees are a lot more superior than anybody you have here.
咁咧，其實咧想向佢證明咧，就係話我嗰啲奉獻者咧，我嗰啲木牛童咧，比起你嗰啲摔角手咧叻好多嘅。
And of course, Kamsa got so angry because Krishna was provoking him, and he just became so angry. And finally, he came out. He said, "Arrest, Nanda Maharaj, behead." Ugrasena and Vasudeva, drive all the Brajvasis out, kill all the Rishni, and he was like going mad. He went completely mad.
咁跟住咧，佢 Krishna 激到咧呢個 Kamsa 咧好嬲。咁跟住 Kamsa 就發晒癲啦，跟住就話去逮捕呢個 Nanda Maharaj， 跟住咧就斬咗 Vasudeva 同埋 Ugrasena 嘅頭，跟住咧就捉晒嗰啲連家門嘅居民，趕走佢哋。
And finally, Krishna had it enough. He'd had enough. And he jumped so fast that Kamsa couldn't understand how he got there. It like he came from the sky. It's like he jumped so quickly, he moved so quickly.
跟住咧 Krishna 咧好似有呢個好勁嘅輕功咁樣，一跳就跳咗去 Kamsa 嘅面前，都唔知佢幾時去到嘅，咁就喺 Kamsa 面前降落咗喺地下。
And even the audience, they couldn't understand how Krishna got from here to there.
咁呢連觀眾咧都唔知 Krishna 幾時咧又去企喺個位置跳咗去 Kamsa 度。
And he fought with him for a few minutes and then just killed him. Boom, boom, finished.
咁過咗片刻，咁佢就搞掂咗佢啦，即係殺咗佢。
So Krishna is so kind.
Krishna 咁仁慈咧。
And he gave Kamsa a form in the spiritual world, similar to his. 咁
Krishna 咧喺靈性世界咧，俾咗 Kamsa 咧一個同佢類似嘅形象咧，俾 Kamsa 喺靈性世界存在。
We can't understand these things with ordinary logic.
如果我哋用普通嘅邏輯咧，係唔能夠明白呢啲事情嘅。
The laws of nature that govern the material world are not the same as the laws of nature that govern the spiritual world.
咁喺物質世界嘅大自然嘅法則咧，同靈性世界嘅大自然法則係唔同嘅。
Here we have our physicists that just trying to figure out how the material world works.
我哋嘅物理學家專星咧就嚟到啦，佢就想試 明白呢個物質世界嘅物理。
Sometimes we talk, we have our mock talking. But the spiritual nature is different.
物質世界嘅東西同靈性世界嘅係唔同。
In the spiritual world, Krishna's always in the center, and everyone always loves him.
喺靈性世界咧，Krishna 經常都喺中心，喺每一個人嘅中心。咁每一個人都好愛 Krishna。
Sometimes it appears that Srimati Radharani is very upset with him.
咁有時睇上嚟好似即係 Radharani 好嬲 Krishna。
Sometimes they'll make a time for a rendezvous.
咁有時佢哋又會安排啲時候咧，等佢哋約會。
And Radharani's waiting.
咁 Radharani 喺度等 Krishna。
And Krishna's coming.
咁 Krishna 嚟緊。
But on the way,
但係咧
one of Chandravali's servants catches him.
咁咧，但係 Krishna 即係去跟呢個 Radharani 相會之前咧，途中咧，途中就俾 Chandravali 嗰啲望樓姑娘，即係右派嗰啲啊，即係 Radharani。
Don't you know the moon？
咁佢哋咧就喺度咧就Krishna 你去緊邊啊咁樣。
Don't you know the moon of Vrindavan, Chandra, Vali is waiting for you?
你唔知道Vrindavan 嘅月亮 Chandravali 係等緊你咩咁
And his nature, Krishna's nature, he's yayatamam prabhajante, tarantatadvajamyaham. Someone approaches him with devotion, with affection, he can't say no.
咁 Krishna 係一個咁深遠嘅人啦，咁任何人咧用一個奉愛心咧去接近佢咧 ，Krishna 都唔會係拒絕嘅。
So he thinks, anyway, I'll just spend a little time with her. So he really wanted to go to see Srimati Radharani.
咁 Krishna 雖然好想去見 Srimati Radharani， 佢諗不如等我陪下 Chandravali 陪一陣啦咁。
But meanwhile, Radharani's pacing back and forth. Krishna doesn't come on time.
咁呢個時候咧，因為 Krishna 遲到咧，咁 Radharani 咧就喺度行嚟行去啦，好唔耐煩。
She's getting more and more upset.
咁佢就越嚟越嬲啦。
Now, from external point of view, it appears that she's angry at Krishna.
外在地咧，佢好似係嬲住 Krishna。
But those who actually know, and this is Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur.
咁啊 Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur 佢先前一位靈性導師。
In one book that he wrote, Srimati Radharani explains to Krishna while Krishna is disguised as a goddess.
咁有一次呢個情節咧就係 Radharani 咧就向 Krishna 解釋點解。咁當時 Krishna 咧就係假扮成為一位女神。
What's actually going on in her mind when she looks like she's so upset?
咁 Radharani 喺度解釋，即係佢個外表好似好嬲嘅時候，究竟佢內心有咩？內心嘅世界係點樣嘅咧？
And she says, "You don't understand."
咁佢話咧，你真係唔明㗎，其實。
The reason I'm so upset is because I know that Krishna wants to be with me.
咁我點解咁嬲咧？其實就係因為我知道 Krishna 好想同我喺埋一齊。
And that he can't be happy without me.
咁 Krishna 咧，如果唔同我喺埋一齊，佢係唔會快樂嘅。
And so because he's suffering,
咁因為 Krishna 咧係受緊苦啊，
I'm upset.
所以我就唔開心啦。
This is the difference.
呢個就係個分別啦。
When we get upset, it's because it's about me.
咁通常我哋自己唔高興嘅時候咧，即係通常都係因為出於即係我自己有啲唔高興啦。
When in the spiritual world, when the devotees get upset, it's about Krishna.
咁如果喺靈性世界嘅奉獻者，如果佢哋唔高興咧，其實都係因為 Krishna 嘅。
So if there's any competition, any apparent envy, apparent quarreling, and all those things, it's only for the pleasure of Krishna.
咁喺靈性世界嘅，譬如有啲嫉妒啊，或者競爭啊，其實都係為咗取悅 Krishna。
And even one time Radharani was cursed. Did you know that?
就佢可能有一次俾人詛咒添，你知唔知啊？
You'll have to be separated from Krishna for a certain number of years.
咁就個詛咒就係話 Radharani 要同 Krishna 分開好多幾多年咁樣。
So these things are all going on because spiritual world is real. Everyone is a person.
呢啲一切咧都喺靈性世界發生緊嘅，因為靈性世界係真實嘅。
And in order to make the atmosphere complete in variety, because variety, even here we say variety is the spice of life.
因為靈性世界咧都係俾呢啲叫多元性咧，令到佢更加美好嘅。就算喺啲物質世界都係㗎，即係你要啲嘢要多元化先至即係點講啊，開心啲啊，或者豐富啲嘅。
You know, I'm a sannyasi. I like to eat the same thing every day. I like it. We have in Govardhan, same thing. Khichdi, and little dahi.
Drumstick.
Fruit. No, every day, and I'm completely in ecstasy.
佢話佢自己係sannyasi，即係出家人。咁托布真啦，咁佢就話佢每一日食同樣嘅食物咧，佢就好開心㗎啦。即係喺高丹佢哋個修院嗰度咧，佢哋朝頭早就食啲印度嘅粥啦，咁食啲乳酪啦，食啲水果啦，咁日日都如是，但係咧好狂氣嘅。
But sometimes someone comes who wants to cook for me, and they're very upset. Why you can't do the same thing every day?
有時有啲奉獻者咧嚟到咧，我要煮嘢俾我食，咁佢就同我講：
But it's really about it.
你唔可以日日都食同一樣嘢嘅喎，咁樣。
What it's really about is they want to cook what they want to cook. For me, they cook the same thing. You can't do that.
咁咧啲奉獻者就可能想煮啲唔同嘅嘢俾佢食啦，咁但係佢馬拉自己就想食相同嘅嘢嘅，咁嗰啲奉獻者就會話點得㗎？你點解可以人都食相同嘅嘢啊？
But it's out of love that they think like that.
即係如果諗深一層咧，就佢哋嘅出發點都係因為愛。
It's the nature.
呢個係個
It's the
本
nature of love, especially conjugal love, especially.
尤其是咧愛侶之情係特別
It's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. The movements of conjugal love between man and woman are like a snake.
咁咧，永恆的彩版夜經咧係描述咧男女嘅關係咧，就好似條蛇咁嘅，即係唔係直嘅，係喺度彎嚟彎去。
And why? Because it's like that in the spiritual world.
點解會係咁咧？因為靈性世界嘅愛侶情懷咧都係咁嘅，都係彎嚟彎去。
Sometimes Krishna wants to see Radharani angry.
有時咧 Krishna 咧想見到 Radharani 嬲嘅。
He wants to see that different expression on her face.
咁咧Krishna 想見到 Radharani 咧有唔同嘅表情。
He likes it.
佢中意嘅。
So he'll say something or do something to make her upset.
咁咧 Krishna 就會做啲嘢或者講啲嘢咧係令到 Radharani 唔高興。
And that increases their enjoyment.
咁樣咧係可以增加佢哋嘅享受。
So what we're doing here is we're just imitating. That's all.
咁我哋喺呢個物質世界所做嘅嘢，只不過喺度模仿緊神咯。
And that was the main point of the class, was that, it may appear externally that there is some bliss in the conjugal relationship here, but really it always ends up in suffering, always.
咁喺物質世界咧，我哋假裝咧呢個即係愛情嘅關係咧，都有啲快樂喺度嘅，假裝嘅。咁因為好多時呢啲所謂嘅男女關係咧，最終都係即係悲劇收場。
So even if you can find someone that's your soulmate, you're just completely compatible, everything's perfect, and you go through a whole life, then what?
即係譬如
You die.
譬如你同你嘅靈魂嘅，你揾到你靈魂嘅伴侶啦，即係大家都好夾啦，即係夾到冇，即係天上有地下冇啦。咁但係又一齊過埋呢一生啦。咁最終都係要。
And then the suffering is even worse.
咁嗰種嘅痛苦咧係更加大嘅。
Everything was so nice and all of a sudden it's gone. Oh, that's the worst suffering.
你生活咁美滿啦，突然間冇晒啦，咁你係更加痛苦。
In the spiritual world, Krishna arranges, so sometimes there's separation, and that separation increases the joy of the meeting.
咁通常有時候咧喺靈性世界會安排咧一啲同啲Radharani或者蒙牛姑娘分離嘅， 咁係為咗咧增加咧佢下一次相會嘅時候嘅快樂嘅。
Because the meeting always happens.
因為咧佢經常都會會面㗎嘛，見面嘅。
Not like here, where you're together, it's wonderful, the whole life, and then finished. They die, and they never see each other again, period.
譬如喺物質世界嘅夫婦啦，咁佢哋一生都一齊度過啦，可能好美滿啦。咁但係死咗嘅時候咧，就可能永遠都唔會再見。
So after doing that, life after life after life after life, eventually, in the spiritual, in the subtle body, the soul will think, why am I doing this?
咁嗱，譬如你係已經做咗呢件事好多世嘅，即係都係同某個人結婚，跟住一齊好耐，跟住又分離。咁你個靈魂就會諗啦，我做咁多世搞咩咧？我要咩咧
Better I go back to Krishna.
我最好都係翻去 Krishna 嗰度啦。
So when you see something that, is in Shastra or about the spiritual world that seems kind of not correct or something like that, you should always understand that at the core, if you go deep enough in the core, you'll find that it's always for Krishna's pleasure.
咁如果喺經典咧係睇到一啲靈性世界入邊有啲好似矛盾啊，或者好似有啲唔啱嘅地方，咁如果你再去鑽研深入啲咧，你最終咧你都會明白咧呢一切咧都係為咗 Krishna 嘅喜悅而做嘅。
Even the cowherd boys, they sometimes do things that appear to make Krishna, fearful. They march into the Aghasura demon's mouth. Right in front of Krishna, they just go, looks like a cave. No, look, it's a big snake. It is just about ready to swallow us. Krishna's here, it's okay. Let's go see. Boom, they go into the mouth of the snake.
譬如有一個逍遙時光咧，就係啲牧牛童咧，有時會做啲嘢好危險嘅，即係特登係嚇 Krishna 咁樣嘅。咁佢哋譬如有一條蛇叫 Aghasura， 咁就擘大個口好似山洞咁，啲牧牛童咧就喺度咧就有人話好危險嘅喎，咁佢哋話唔怕啦，Krishna 喺度，等我哋入去睇下係點嘅先咁。
And what does it result in? It results in Krishna becoming the hero and going and saving them, and he feels fantastic.
咁個結果係點咧？就係咧，咁 Krishna 咧就成為英雄啦，就去拯救咗佢哋啦。咁 Krishna 就感覺非常之良好啦，即係呢個。
Because he takes great pleasure in protecting his devotees.
因為 Krishna 咧去保護佢嘅奉獻者嘅時候咧，係感覺
That's what he likes to do most.
好中意，即係好中意去保護佢嘅奉獻者。
That's what he wants to do. That's what he likes to do most.
Krishna 最中意咧、最渴望咧就係去保護佢奉獻者。
So when we hear these things and get to know these things and learn and go deep into analyzing the spiritual world and Krishna's pastimes, then we can understand more clearly what's going on here.
咁如果我哋更加深入明白咧 Krishna 喺靈性世界嘅逍遙時光嘅活動同埋個背後嘅意義咧，咁我哋就會更加明白喺物質世界嘅事情。
And when we actually surrender to Krishna, completely.
如果我哋真係全然咁樣咧，係歸依俾 Krishna 嘅時候咧
Nothing more for me.
冇任何嘢係俾我㗎啦。
Everything for Krishna.
所有嘢都係俾 Krishna。
Then we taste something most special.
咁我哋咧就會品味到一樣嘢咧，非常之特別嘅經驗。
And when you do that, it's just like watering the root of the tree.
如果你真係咁做嘅咧，就好似你係喺度咧淋水咧淋落一棵樹嘅根部。
And automatically, first you'll see the devotees who are closer to you, even family members, they'll become very dear to you, more dear than before.
咁如果你自己達到呢個層次咧，你就首先你就會見到一啲喺你身邊周圍嘅奉獻者，同你接近啲嘅奉獻者，同埋你屋企人咧，佢哋變得好似對你同佢哋嘅關係特別咧係親愛，即係更加親密。
Because when you have love, premanjana, chudita, bhakti, vilochanena, then you see things differently. It's like putting nice ointment on your eyes that can make you see very clearly.
咁當你自己係擁有多啲愛嘅時候咧， 咁即係好似塗上呢個愛膏喺你個眼度，咁你所見到嘅嘢或者經驗嘅，你就會你嘅愛嘅感受會更加多。
So even if your family member is neutral or even appears to be antagonistic sometimes, it won't disturb you.
咁所以你嘅家人可能佢唔係奉獻者，可能有時比較敵意啲啊，諸如此類咧。其實咧，佢哋咁樣嘅情況都唔會對你有咩影響。
Because you'll be willing to tolerate anything to give them a nice impression for Krishna.
咁因為咧，你係願意咧容忍一切咧，讓即係俾一個咧一個好嘅印象，即係為咗 Krishna 俾一個好嘅印象佢哋。
Therefore, if you become fully Krishna conscious, you'll be a better husband, better wife, better anything, everything.
咁如果你係更加 Krishna 知覺咧，你就會成為一位更好嘅丈夫啦，更好嘅妻子啦。你任何嘅事情都會做得更好。
And as you become more Krishna conscious, because Krishna consciousness is such that you become happy, you change, your heart changes, and others will become more happy with you. Everyone, even your boss at work, everyone will become.
變得更加 Krishna 知覺咧，咁你同你身邊嘅人嘅關係又會好啲嘅，即係人哋覺得你好啲嘅，即係冇咁差。講笑。
And because everyone has to depend on other people in order to get their thing done, life becomes easier to get things done. It's easier because people will want to do more for you.
因為咧，我哋嘅生活咧都係依靠其他人嘅。咁如果我哋成為一個更好嘅人，咁更多人咧係願意幫你做啲嘢咧，咁你嘅生活就更加容易啲啦。
Sometimes when we're going to the airport, and there are travelers that are, let's put it this way, they're difficult people.
咁有時去到即係旅遊嘅時候去到機場，有啲旅客就係一啲即係都唔係幾友善嘅人啊。
And sometimes they become very impatient.
咁有時佢哋會可能冇乜耐性。
They yell at the persons who are trying to do the service to check them in and do everything.
可能佢哋有時都即係自己冇耐性去鬧人啊，鬧個即係嗰啲 check-in counter 嗰啲職員啊。
So one time I was in the line, and I had a little overweight, and I didn't have the money to pay for overweight. So, and this line was full of that kind of person. So by the time I got there, this person was just waiting for the next person to do something strange,
咁咧佢有一次喺機場咧 check in 嘅時候咧就排隊啦。咁佢個隊都好長，咁前面嗰啲人咧全部都係啲好難搞啲人嚟嘅，即係好啷禮嘅。咁嗰個即係個職員，可能 check in 個職員就即係到馬拉行到去咧，佢就已經即係降晒嚟啦，即係話呢個人唔知會做啲乜嘢。
So when I got to the front, it was my turn. I looked at her and I said, "How do you tolerate all these people?"
咁我就行到埋去咧，就同佢講啦，唉，你點容忍啲咁嘅人啊？真係慘啊你！
You must be some great saint or something.
你一定要係一個大聖人啊！你容忍力咁高啊！
You're doing such a good job.
哇！你真係做得好好啊！你
I can't imagine.
我真係想像唔到啊！
And I put my bag on. She says, "Oh, thank you." She didn't even look at the weight.
咁佢當時馬拉松行李過重嘅，咁嗰個職員咧聽到馬拉松啲咁甜言蜜語咧，跟住咧就睇都冇睇佢幾重嗰啲行李就，哎呀係啊，多謝你。
This is what makes life, Krishna consciousness. It makes life smooth on all levels.
Krishna 知覺嘅生活咧，令到你生活嘅唔同嘅細節咧，都會變得更加暢順，更加容易。
And then you can really not take things too seriously.
咁喺呢個時候咧，你真係可以唔係咁認真去對待啲事情。
It's a great secret.
係一個好大嘅秘密嚟嘅。
And steadiness, because our next step now is to be steady.
咁咧要變得穩定咧，呢個係呢個秘密啦。
When you become steady, really steady, and that means your faith is very firm, and most of the anarthas are gone. Maybe not all, but most are gone, and you're steady. then you can get taste, more taste.
咁嗱，我哋下一步咧就係要變得穩定啦。如果你變得好穩定嘅時候，即係話你對 Krishna 嘅信心好堅定啦，咁你已經清除咗大部分嘅唔好嘅品質嘅。
It's why in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says so many times to Arjuna how important it is for him to become equipoised.
咁你到時會有啲品味啦。咁博家梵多咧 ，Krishna 同阿 Arjuna 講咧，佢話即係講好多次嘅就係話咧，你要用一個平常心去生活嘅。
If you counted the number of, I haven't done it, I need to do this. Count the number of verses. Maybe you can make it an exercise. See how many verses you can find in the Gita in which Krishna talks about that subject directly or indirectly.
咁你俾個功課你哋翻去就去國家梵多揾下佢幾個詩節 ，Krishna 直接啦或者間接咧係講到咧，我哋咧要係用一個平常心去生活。
I haven't counted them, but I'm speculating 100 at least.
咁我就冇數到啦，不過我估最可能有100次。
It's like the main point that Krishna is making.
咁好似係 Krishna 講嘅其中一個重點啦。
And he never says, "Oh, now you're Krishna conscious, so now there won't be any defeat. There won't be any sadness. There won't be any cold. There won't be any existence." No. He said, in all those things, because you're in the material world. Every one of us, even if we're liberated souls, we're under the jurisdiction of time.
咁咧Krishna 從來都冇講過，如果你變得 Krishna 知覺，你就冇痛苦啊，冇麻煩啊，即係唔會有啲即係唔會失敗啊。Krishna 冇咁樣講。咁因為咧，我哋仍然咧係處喺物質世界，仍然咧係受制於咧物質世界嘅法則咧去生活。
Bhishmadev, he's speaking to Yudhishthira.
Bhishmadev 咧向 Yudhishthira Maharaj 講。
Yudhishthira feels very bad because of the battle of Kurukshetra.
Yudhishthira 咧因為咧嗰場戰爭咧感覺即係好傷心。
He was depressed.
咁佢有啲抑鬱。
So many millions of men lost their lives so that I can become the emperor, king. Oh, very lamentable.
咁Yudhishthira Maharaj 咧就好憂傷咧，就係咧嗰場戰咧有數以百萬計嘅人係被殺死啦。咁唔通就係咁多人死就係為咗我做國王咩咁？
So he went to see, by Krishna's arrangement, he went to see Bhishmadev.
咁 Krishna 安排咧就Yudhishthira Maharaj 就去見 Bhishmadev。
And Bhishmadev fell first, day or two. Very soon, beginning of the battle, Bhishma fell. But where did he fall? He fell onto a bed of arrows. So many arrows piercing his body. He was laying on a bed of arrows. 咁呢
件事發生冇幾耐咧，咁 Bhishma 咧就戰敗啊！咁咧佢咧係俾咁多嘅弓箭咧射穿佢嘅身體咧，咁佢係即係佢跌低嘅時候咧係瞓喺張用箭做嘅床咁樣啦，即係所有嘅箭插穿佢嘅身體咧，咁佢就瞓咗喺地下。
So the first thing that Bhishmadev said to Yudhishthira was, "Don't lament."
咁 Bhishmadev 第一句説話向 Yudhishthira Maharaj 講嘅咧就係話你唔好咁悲傷。
We're all under the jurisdiction of time.
我哋咧都係受到時間所控制嘅。
Just see, here I am.
咁你睇下啦，我而家喺個戰床上面瞓緊。
He's Mahajan.
咁佢係啲偉大嘅靈魂，偉大嘅奉
One of
獻
the
者。
12 great authorities in the universe.
Bhishmadev 係宇宙入邊最偉大嘅馬哈像12位馬哈像之一。
Of course, he wasn't suffering like an ordinary person suffered, but still, he had to be in that difficult situation.
咁當然 Bhishmadev 唔係好似普通人咁樣受苦啦，但係佢仍然咧被處於一個咁困難咁痛苦嘅境況。
Maharaj Parikshit, when he came upon the bull and the cow being abused by the personality of Kali, who had disguised himself as a king.
咁另外一個消息講咧就係當Parikshit Maharaj 咧係遇見當佢見到咧公牛同埋母牛咧受到呢個卡利年代嘅人格化嘅即係攻擊嘅時候咧。
So he asked him, "Oh, who has done this to you?"
咁 Parikshit Maharaj 就問公牛啦，邊個咁樣傷害你啊？
Because the kings were just. Krishna conscious kings, they were just. He wanted to hear exactly from the bull. Did this person do this to you?
公正即係一位神聖嘅國王咧，佢哋好公正嘅。咁佢親口咧要問個受害者咧，究竟邊個咧係傷害你
And the bull refused to point his finger.
咁隻公牛咧就拒絕咧係講出真相。
He said, well, some philosophers say that is the material nature. Some philosophers say that it is the atoms of the universe. Some philosophers say this. Some philosophers say that.
咁公牛咧就答咗好多個，俾咗好多個答案咧，就話即係有啲哲學家就話係即係呢個時間嘅安排啦，或者係啲粒子啦，或者有啲哲學家又咁樣講咯。
And then the king understood, oh, this is no ordinary bull.
咁國王咧就立刻明白啦，呢一隻公牛唔係普通嘅公牛啦。
And then finally, Parikshit, he concluded that this bull is so intelligent, he must be Dharma personified.
咁當 Maharaj Pariksit 跟住咧就有一個結論啦，呢隻公牛咁聰明智慧咧，咁佢一定係呢個 Dharma。
And he's teaching this lesson that if you accuse someone, even if they've done it, if you accuse, then you will get the same reactions as the person who did the wrong thing.
咁呢個係 Dharma 俾到我哋嘅教導啦，即係如果有一個人真係做錯咗一件事，但係你去指正佢咧，咁咧你都會得到咧嗰個做錯事嗰個人嘅報應，即係相同嘅報應。
This is very elevated.
咁呢個好崇高嘅一個情操嚟。
Not an ordinary person can do that because here the emperor of the earth is asking.
咁唔係普通人做得到嘅，而家係呢個當時係地球嘅國王喺度問呢個問題。
So Dharma is making a strong point. It's a strong point.
Dharma 就俾咗一個好強烈嘅一點。
And he even refused to say Krishna did it.
佢亦都拒絕咧，係話係 Krishna 所做。
You know, Krishna is sanctioning everything. Why can't you blame Krishna?
咁嗱，因為 Krishna 容許一切事情發生啦。咁佢亦都冇去埋怨 Krishna。
No, he wouldn't do that.
佢亦都冇咁樣做。
And then Parikshit understood, oh, this is a Chintya Veda Tattva. It's the inconceivable energy of the Lord that's doing it.
咁 Pariksit Maharaj 就明白到啦，呢個係咧主嘅即一即二嘅哲學啦。
And there's one place in purports in the Gita where Krishna says, where Prabhupada says, better to suffer than to protest when something happens to you.
咁Prabhupada咧話，如果有一啲事情發生嘅時候咧，你咧自己情願咧係去容忍個痛苦啦，就唔好去投訴，即係唔好去抗議啊。
Because by doing that, gradually you become actually meek and humble.
因為如果你持續咁樣做咧，你最終咧係會變得更加謙卑啦、順從。
And with that quality, then you can become actually submissive.
咁如果你真係擁有呢啲品質咧，咁你就會真係變得好順從。
And when you're actually submissive, then when you hear, it goes very deep.
咁如果你真係培養咗呢種謙卑順從嘅心態咧，咁當你去聆聽一啲知識嘅時候咧，就可以進入一個好即係進入得你內心嘅深處。
When you hear about Krishna, it goes very deep.
咁如果你聽到 Krishna 嘅題目咧，就可以去到內心嘅深處。
And then it wakes you up. It wakes your love up.
咁就可以喚醒咧你嘅愛。
So the pure devotee of Krishna, and especially the associates of Krishna, they understand this completely, fully.
Krishna 嘅同友咧係完全明白呢一點嘅。
And so they're always grateful to Krishna for anything that happens to them.
咁佢哋咧經常咧，無論發生咩事都好咧，佢哋都會係向 Krishna 咧感恩嘅。Can I ask one question? Like in the spiritual world, there are always also some devotees. They act as person who always complain, they protest. Like who's that? The mother-in-law and sister-in-law, Jatila and Kotila. Yeah. So how to justify that?
Oh, that's very interesting. It's the same answer actually.
Same as this person。
It's the same answer. Because
我哋正世界都有啲人係即係個角色專係扮演係喺度做投訴啊，搞下嘢，搞下是非啊咁樣嘅，即係好似 Radharani 嘅奶奶啊，同埋即係姑奶啊，咁佢哋都好興嘅係真。
You know, Radharani and Krishna's relationship is parakya. Parakya. It's lover and beloved, unwedded love.
咁 Radha 同 Krishna 嘅關係咧係一個未結婚嘅愛情嚟嘅情侶嚟嘅。
So there have to be obstacles.
咁咧係所以會有啲障礙嘅。
For the relationship to become ecstatic.
咁讓佢哋嘅感情咧係變得狂喜啊！所以有啲障礙令到佢更加狂喜。
So that's their service.
咁呢個係呢啲投訴嘅奉獻者嘅服務嚟嘅。
They put the obstacles, and so the meetings with Radha and Krishna become very thrilling.
佢哋呢啲喺度製造一啲障礙俾 Radha Krishna 見面啦。咁當佢哋即係 Radha Krishna 即係見面嘅時候咧，咁更加點講啊？興奮啦！佢哋更加開心。Arjun has it.
Yes, Arjun.
If you think about the benefit of the person who did something wrong to you, then wouldn't you want to complain because that would, like to an authority, because the authority would correct them and that would be for their own good. So if you think about their benefit, wouldn't you want to complain?
Yeah, that's possible also. But that's only if you have some goodwill to that person. You have to have goodwill to that person.
Not like
to
you're
think,
enmity with them.
No, to think like that, you have to have goodwill to the person.
佢話：如果有阿尊就問個問題就係：如果有個人對你做咗一件唔好嘅事情，咁你如果為咗嗰個人嘅好，即係為咗嗰個人好，你就可以向一個權威投訴，咁等個權威改正呢個人，咁你係為咗呢個人好啲嘅將來。咁但係 Maharaj 嘅答案就係話：你嘅動機咧就係你要真係為嗰個人好，咁先得。
Yeah, sometimes something will happen that someone needs correction. And that's what happened in this case of Sridhama. It's also, they needed to be corrected. So Krishna made the arrangements that they were corrected. There was some curse and then they got corrected. So if you're in a position to correct someone out of love, then of course the father will sometimes has to correct the son. Otherwise the
所
son
以
will grow bad.
有時一啲奉獻者可能要被改正嘅，咁所以可能就會製造一啲處境咧，佢哋係可以被改正嘅咯。好似樹丹啊同埋呢個 Winter Davy 個 case 咁樣，即係去詛咒啊咁。
But that's not the same thing. That's not the same thing as something untoward happening to you. So Parikshit was asking Dharma, what happened to you? Who did this to you? And Dharma, because Dharma was very humble, he was most humble. He wouldn't accuse.
個情況唔同啦，咁即係 Parikshit 問嗰個公牛邊個人傷害你？咁因為公牛自己嘅情操咧，佢就冇講，
But the emperor
即係死都唔肯講邊個係。
but Parikshit could see with his own eyes because he was deep. He could see. So he took out his sword and he was going to kill anyway. He was going to kill Kali anyway. And then what happened? Kali surrendered to him. I'm also a subject. I'm in your kingdom. I'm your citizen. I surrender completely. Please forgive me. And then he gave him shelter.
咁當時 Parikshit 雖然呢個公牛咧冇回答啦，但係 Parikshit 已經知道係呢個卡利做嘅。咁當 Parikshit 攞起佢嘅寶劍想殺死呢個卡利嘅時候，呢個卡利人格法咧就跪喺度，就話完全歸依俾呢個國王啦，就話我都係你嘅子民，即係我都係你國土入邊嗰個子民，而家我歸依俾你啦，我認錯啦。
The point is that there are sometimes apparently contradictory things that happen.
咁有時候咧，有啲係明顯地咧係有啲矛盾嘅事情發生。
And those apparent contradictory things, they become reconciled in Krishna.
咁咧呢啲明顯地好似係矛盾嘅嘢咧，喺 Krishna 嚟講咧就可以化解嘅。
So if your motive for telling on your brother, for instance, or your sister, or somebody else in order to help them, if that's the mood, then it's accepted as devotional service. It can be accepted as devotional. But in general, we shouldn't. In general, we shouldn't.
如果你想去改正一個人，或者去報告俾另外一啲人聽，呢個人做錯咩事，因為你係用愛去，或者你係去想為佢好而做呢件事咧，咁係被視為係奉獻服務嚟。
Because in a general sense, if you just let a little time go by, then time generally, corrects things.
咁如果你有啲耐性咧，等時間咧去磨合一啲嘢啦，咁或者係治療一啲傷口咧，咁時間通常都可以做得到嘅。
But sometimes you may be in the position of authority, spiritual master disciple, a mother or father of a son. Then you have to do your duty.
咁有時候你係一個權威嘅位置，可能你係靈性導師啦，或者你係父母啦，咁你就要做你嘅職責啦，即係去改正你嘅父母或者你嘅兒女，咁係你嘅職責。
See the fault and correct.
咁見到佢哋做錯嘢就要改正。
But the point is that if you're Krishna conscious, then there's another dimension to your correction. You're not correcting him just so he can go out and make more money, so you can live more comfortably when you get old.
但係如果你係 Krishna 之樂咧，咁你改正你嘅即係譬如兒女嘅時候嘅深度就會唔同啦。即係你唔係淨係想佢讀完書揾多啲錢翻嚟，等你老咗就有依靠啊咁樣。
The Krishna conscious, and you're doing it so the person can grow straight, so they can become a good devotee of Krishna.
咁你嘅即係你如果佢哋改正你嘅兒女，就係希望咧佢可以成為一位奉獻者。
So everything depends on our consciousness.
一切視乎我哋自己嘅意識嘅。
There's nothing inherently good or bad, period. It all depends on our use, how we use it.
冇任何嘢話係好或者唔好嘅，其實係視乎我哋點樣利用佢咯。
Even poison, they use it in very small quantities in certain medicines.
就算毒藥有時會係即係用藥嘅時候用好少份量嘅毒藥，我哋當藥用嘅。
A very sharp knife, applied by a doctor, surgeon. You allow it.
譬如醫生用一把好利嘅刀去幫人做手術，咁呢一樣嘢係容許嘅。
A thief.
但如果個賊拎住把刀咁就唔得啦。
Completely different.
係完全唔同嘅。
So everything depends on the consciousness.
咁一切咧視乎我哋嘅意識。
And the discrimination on how to use things, that rests in the hands of those who actually know.
咁你點樣去分辨咧？咁就視乎係咩人喺度操控嗰件事。
Therefore, we seek wisdom, not for our own aggrandizement, for our own pleasure.
Sorry, I missed that.
Therefore, we seek wisdom, not so that we can become, honored or for our own pleasure.
咁我哋去追尋智慧咧，就唔係為咗咧個人嘅名譽地位啊。
We want to be wise so that we can help others come to Krishna consciousness.
我哋希望自己變得有智慧啦，去幫助咧其他人咧係得到 Krishna 知覺嘅。
And according to our capacity, we can help everyone around us.
咁根據我哋自己嘅能力啦，我哋可以幫助咧自己身邊嘅人咧。
And you can measure yourself how effective, how Krishna conscious you're becoming by how, in general, people react to you, how they respond to you, and how you feel, how you react to other people.
咁你可以量度自己 Krishna 之後嘅進步咧，係睇下你即係別人咧點樣，即係對你嘅反應係點啦，同埋你對別人嘅反應係點咯。
Yoga Yukta Vishuddhatma. You know that verse? Anybody? Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma. Jitendriya something? Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma Jitendriya. Fifth chapter, Bhagavad Gita. Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma Kurvan Api Nalipyate. 5. I want to read the exact translation. I think it's 5:15. Is it? No. It's before.
5:7.
5:7. Correct. Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma Vijitatma Jitendriya Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma Kurvan Api Nalipyate. One who works in devotion.
咁一個人咧係喺呢個奉愛入邊工作嘅人咯。
Who is a pure soul.
佢係一位咧純潔嘅靈魂。
And it controls his mind and senses.
佢咧能夠控制佢嘅心意同埋感官咧。
Is dear to everyone.
係咧所有人咧都好鍾愛佢嘅。
And everyone is dear to him.
佢對人好親切啦，所有人都覺得佢好親切。
So always working, such a person is never entangled.
咁呢個人雖然佢經常喺度工作得，但佢係永不咧係受到咧捆綁嘅。
So this is freedom.
咁呢個就係自由
Real freedom.
真正嘅自由。
When we don't have any personal motives.
如果我哋冇一個個人嘅動機咧
We're not after the credit.
我哋唔係想得到一啲獎賞。
We're just serving purely.
我哋只係咧純粹去服務咧。
And if you're doing that, then in general, I'm not saying everyone, there's always, even a devotee doesn't have any enemies. There are people who think that they're the enemies of the devotee.
咁我係一般嚟講啦，咁有時奉獻者其實係冇敵人嘅，但係咧有啲人諗咧即係佢自己係即係佢係佢哋嘅敵人。
Okay. Something?
Anything?
Let him know.
No, it's very nice. 好好係嘛 ？They all love it. And you see, they all 係嘛一齊
So become fully Krishna conscious and then spread Krishna consciousness.
佢請求我哋變得 Krishna 知覺，跟住咧去傳播 Krishna 知覺。
When we were talking to this Christian group, remember? Youth group that came?
星期六咧星期六有一班基督徒嚟過，咁馬上去講嗰啲説話。
Some of them were
有啲人就好似即係好起晒槓咁樣。
Some of them were responding very nicely.
咁有啲人就即係反應得好好啦。
When the students came to Govardhan, when I took Chandra and Vishaka took that group of students from China University to around India, and they just happened to bring them to Govardhan, you know. And then I was able to talk to them for an hour and a half, and I think 3 or 4 of them, they heard. And I could see in their eyes. Anyway,
咁Chandra 哥哥同月昌咁啲帶咗一團嗰啲學生就去遊歷印度啦，咁就去到高巴丹，咁馬拉有個機會就同佢講咗1個半鐘頭嘅説話。咁其中有4個學生咧就聽住馬拉，佢有聽到馬拉講嘅嘢啦，即係隻眼發光。
Last night I was talking to Josephine, such a responsible person, doctor, so intelligent, and fluent in English, and you know. And I just told her, okay, so if you could come, there's hundreds of you out there. There's hundreds, at least, in all of Hong Kong, at least, maybe thousands. So it's up to us to find them.
咁佢琴晚就同Josephine 媽都知傾偈啦，就話佢係一個醫生啦，咁有責任心啦，流利英語啦，咁佢話外邊仲有成千、成百上千嘅呢啲靈魂咧，咁我哋要出去揾佢哋翻嚟。
Find them and take the austerity, the pain that it takes to have everyone say no, 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 no.
咁要出去做啲苦行啦。 因為好多時候啲人都會話唔要啊，唔要啊，唔要啊，即係你去派書嘅時候。
But everyone who says no is bringing you one person closer to the one that's going to say yes.
係咪咧？但係你應該用個正面嘅睇法咧，就係你見到即係每一個對你講不嘅人咧，咁都會帶你去一個人話好嘅人咧，係行前一步嘅。
So when they say no, you say, "Oh, thank you very much."
咁如果佢哋話唔好啊，唔要啊，咁你就話多謝啊，多謝你啊咁。
Because you know, that means there's one more, little closer. I'm a little closer to the one
咁
that
你
will say yes.
知道你更加接近另外，將來會有一個人你係會見到佢話好嘅，佢要嘅。
Because always someone will say yes.
因為一定會有一啲人會話。
Otherwise, why are you here?
如果唔係，點解你會喺度咧？
So remember this and be in that consciousness and try to spread Krishna consciousness.
咁經常處於呢一種嘅意識啦，咁咧經常都去傳播 Krishna 之講啦。
And Krishna will give you everything.
咁 Krishna 咧會賜你一切。
And whatever, sometimes clashes of personality or natures or all these things that happen even among devotees, they will be insignificant.
咁所以即係人與人之間啲摩擦咧，即係難以避免嘅。就算奉獻者之間咧，即係唔需要睇得咁嚴重。
Okay?
Thank you.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki
Jai.
Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
There's
What?
another group, Christian group coming tomorrow night.